Okay, well, welcome everybody, both in person and on Zoom to the Central Park United Neighbors Annual Forum. This is our May 2024 meeting. As always, I'll start off just with some information about Central Park United Neighbors, and then we will jump right into the agenda and keep moving. It is very packed tonight. So about Central Park United Neighbors, CPUN is the registered neighborhood organization, or RNO, for the Central Park community. We provide a working forum for the residents of Central Park to participate in creating, developing, and fostering a vibrant urban community dedicated to social equity, environmental responsibility, and economic opportunity. At our monthly meetings, we facilitate the discussion of key issues with neighbors, engage in proactive problem prevention, and amicable problem solving. CPUN is committed to providing an inclusive and welcoming environment for all members of our community. Next slide. Our mission is the betterment of the city of Denver by providing a forum for the residents living in Central Park to discuss and resolve issues, a network of communication, a means of acting on matters of importance to the community as a whole. We promote public service, civil civic discourse, collective efficacy, and we are an all-volunteer board of Central Park residents and a registered 501c3. Next slide, please. Okay, so tonight's agenda looks a little bit different from our regular months. So first up, we will have the 2024 CPUN Board Slate. We'll be welcoming new members and have returning members voted on. So we'll start with the candidate intros and a vote. And then this is also the 20th anniversary of this registered neighborhood organization. So it is originally Stapleton United Neighbors and then Central Park United Neighbors. So we'll have a special presentation on that. At 7 o'clock, we have scheduled city council updates from both Councilwoman Lewis and Councilwoman Gonzales-Gutierrez. I actually have just gotten notes from both staffs that both councilwomen are running a few minutes late. So we'll just kind of adjust as needed. Then after the updates from the council members, we'll have a 5-minute break. And then we'll jump into a brief development update from Kelly Pretzer at Brookfield Properties. And then we'll also be joined online at 7:45 by staff members from the Colorado Department of Transportation, who will do a quick presentation on I-270 safety improvements that are planned along the corridor, and they're soliciting community feedback. And then at 8 o'clock, we'll have kind of the more board-focused time. We'll have a look ahead to the June meeting, and then just kind of different announcements. So next slide, please. Okay. So for our first order of business, we will be voting on the slate of board members for the organization. If we've got, I think we have the new members are here in person. I'll name them. If you can kind of stand up and give a little introduction for folks. And then also we can do just a quick round of intros for current board members, but then we'll also list the returning members. So is Katie Glesney here? Yep. All right.
Stand up
and say hi and why you want to join the board.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Glesney. I moved to Central Park about 2 years ago with my husband and 2 kiddos. We're over in the North End. I'm the director of operations at a small single-site charter school in downtown Denver called Downtown Denver Expeditionary School. And I think why I really wanted to join the board was I just wanted to become involved in the community, obviously. And I think when I moved to the North End, I really saw a lot of potential with all the open spaces and all the parks and all the mixed income housing. I really kind of think it could be something really special where people can come together and create a real community. So I just want to be able to help facilitate that, basically.
So thank you.
All right.
Kristen Fry.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Kristen Fry. My family moved here in 2015. We've got 3 teenagers at Northfield. And I took a big step back from my corporate career about 2 years ago to spend more time with my family, focus on wellness. You'll see my husband and I around town at the rec centers playing pickleball, some of our pickleball players here, and also riding our road bikes around town. And I'm just really excited about volunteerism in general. I've been volunteering for 30 years. I'm really passionate about financial literacy, digital literacy. Excited to bring some of those skills that I've learned to the community. And I'm just really excited to focus more locally. I think there's a lot we could do in the community, and I want to help make it a great place to live and work, and improve collaboration, communication, and make sure everybody feels welcome and heard in the community. Thanks.
David Kugler.
Hi, everybody. My name is David Kugler. I am a resident of Northfield. So I live actually in one of the income restricted townhomes along Central Park Boulevard. So I have lived here in the neighborhood coming up on 5 years. Actually, it's about 4.5. I moved back to Denver about 5 years ago. I've always loved the north part of Denver, specifically Central Park. I went to grad school at the University of Denver, so about 15 years ago, and I was really excited to come back to Denver. I recently, about 4 months ago, went self-employed. So I offer like fractional chief human resource officer services for a lot of small businesses. So who don't necessarily need a full-time HR person, but need some sort of HR support if they have employees. So I have always, in pretty much my entire life, pretty much been an activist and a community activist. And so I was like, I figured that I would rather pour some of that energy into something productive by joining a community organization. So CPUN seemed right. And yeah, I've done a lot of volunteerism with just around the city and the community. And yeah, that's me. So I'm excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Heather Tabano. I'm a Denver native, but I've lived in Conservatory Green since 2022. Prior to that, I lived actually in the South End, and for a few years in between, I was in New Jersey and California. But Denver's home, so it was really nice to come back a couple years ago. My son is a first grader here at Willow. In a prior life, I was a research project manager for a health system here. But I left work when my son was little. Now he's in first grade, so I have a little more time. I sit on the sub HOA for my home here. There's 20 courtyards here in the North End, or in Northfield. I'm an election judge. I volunteer pretty regularly, and I kind of just hope my passion for Denver can bring that to CPUN and advocate more for our neighborhood.
And then I think we should probably introduce the board members who are here in person and online. So we have returning board members. We'll start there. Amanda Allshouse, I think you're online if you want to just unmute and say hi.
Sure. Hi. There we go. Hey there. I joined the board about 15 years ago and served as president between for 10 years, maybe from 2017 to 22, or maybe it was 2016 to 21. And some of the efforts that I've been involved with over the years have been focused in sustainability and education. And initially, it was just community building that brought me in when the Block Captain Network was strong, before social media sort of dominated the need for that. We were very active in connecting communities with block captains and facilitating block parties to help neighbors get to know each other. And just the cohesive neighborhood aspect of Central Park is what's made this feel like home for me from the beginning. So I keep coming back. I'll toss it to Jeff Barron.
Well, I think I think Jeff and Chris. Jeff let me know he's ill. Chris is traveling, so actually they're both not, I believe, not on the meeting. Trisha is here in person.
Oh, yeah.
Hi.
I'm Trisha Houston. I joined the board last year. So I've been on it for 1 year. I have lived here since 14. Sorry, I forget when he was born. I own a mortgage company and I've been involved in the education committee mostly now this entire year.
Thanks. Carol Hunter.
Hi, I'm Carol Hunter. We moved here in about 2017. I live across the street over here in Conservatory Green. And I'm an educator and that just permeates everything that I do. I'm the chair of the education committee. I'm co-chair with Amy Campbell, who's not a board member, but is an incredibly active member of this committee, of the Safe Streets Committee. And that's actually how I came on board. I started attending meetings at the rec center before the pandemic. And I said, who can I talk to about speeding around here? And that's how I got started. I became involved in some other things. So I think was about 2018. And I love it. I've lived in, I don't know, like 27 different houses and I don't know, 19 different neighborhoods in my life around the world. And I find this to be a very unique community in terms of openness and acceptance and collaboration. So I continue to enjoy what I do.
Thank you. And then Mandel, I see you online if you wanted to say hi.
Yep, I'm here. Hello, I'm Mandel Russo. It's breaking up on my end. I don't know if I'm breaking up on your end or not.
You're good.
I moved to, can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So I moved to Central Park in 2016. I'm a Denver native, so I've seen a lot of changes. When I moved to Central Park, I wanted to make sure that I knew what was going on in the community and wanted to play an active role in the things that that concerned me. And so I've been a member of the board. I think I joined in either 2016 or 2017, but shortly after I moved here, and I am currently the chair of the DEI committee. I play a significant role in change in the community, and I'm looking forward to just doing some more work in the community and making sure that we're moving in a positive direction.
And while we're in here, I want to recognize Sandra is our departing board member. This is your last meeting with us as a board member. So I just want to acknowledge.
I've been a resident of Central Park since 2011, and I joined the board 4 years ago. And right before the pandemic, was very involved in the whole name change and everything, and it's been a great experience. The only reason I'm stepping down is because my life is just getting a little bit more complicated, and and I find myself just not doing much more than filling a seat. So I figured I would step aside and let the seat be filled by someone else who can take my place in doing something good for the Central Park.
Thank you so much. And then I think we can just kind of quickly go around just to identify those of us who are neither new nor returning, but are just here. So I'm Liz Stolniger. I'm the board president.
Ryan Penny, I'm the board treasurer.
Tell me.
Matt Blackburn, I also joined the board a year ago.
Amy Zerge is here for chatting. Anyone it's all about?
Yeah, Kevin Hansen, same thing.
Jack, I think.
Jack Seward, I'm a board member. I do many other things in this neighborhood too, but
Wear many hats.
I wear all the hats. This time of year, I'll open 7 pools on Saturday, so it's very exciting.
Awesome. And then I see Jamie is here in person. We're just saying hi.
Hi, I could now get on Zoom, so I yeah, I'm a board member. I've lived here since 2015. I have a daughter in kindergarten. And what else are we saying? Okay.
And then Mark, I think you're the other person online.
Yep, this is Mark Maringer. I'm board secretary and running the slides. I'm here online.
So, thank you. And so the next, I guess the next step is just for the, so we vote as a slate. So it's for, not for the individual folks, it's just for that chunk of names up there. So and it's fairly informal. I think we just asked, Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong, just, are there any objections to moving this slate forward for, you know, for the night, yeah, for approval?
And then,
And
and the
we're not looking or-
clarification is
Sure.
that this is half of the board. The
Yeah.
other half of the board, we alternate terms. So there's
So-
half on 1 year and we had a couple of people that said they joined the board like this year, within the last year. When we fill vacancies, they take the vacancy, the place of the person that's theirs.
So, so yeah, it's alternating 2-year terms. So I'm not seeing anything, any objections from anyone online? Anything in the room? So do you put a motion forward?
It's just
Okay, so. All right. And I think it is interesting. So I should just mention before we move on is that Carol and I were talking about just revisiting the process for all of this since we just got through the board recruitment season. If anybody is interested in kind of being part of a small working group, just to kind of look at the process that we have for both board recruitment and just the process for voting in our bylaws. It's just to kind of get a little bit of a tune-up of that process.
Like that.
So yeah, so talk to Carol if anybody is interested in that going forward. All right, so the next slide. All right, and so usually there is kind of an annual look back during the May forum, but because this is the 20th anniversary of Stapleton United Neighbors / Central Park United Neighbors, Brian will be giving a little bit of a 20-year look back on the organization. And I don't know, is Bill? Here? Oh, why don't you join? I can move over here if you'd like to have a. Okay.
So the story starts when there were about 500 houses in this neighborhood. So if you can imagine, there's a picture that comes up. Somebody walking around to those 500 houses, Mr. Fulton and a few other people putting flyers on their door and said, come to, so Mark, you can go to the next slide, come to a pocket park on 29th. Place.
No way.
And that's how it began. That was actually the summer of 2003. But because of just getting organized and coordinated, it took us the better part of 9 months to register with the city and the state. And so in 2004, we were registered, and our first board meeting was held on April 13th, 2004. And I guess what I would say, and the next slide gets into it, is that there were about 15 people at the time that started it. And there are several other people that still live in the community, but a lot of them have moved out of the community. Bill is one of them. Bill was elected president and was president for probably the first 4 years or 3 or 4 years at least.
Together.
But there were lots of good people that became involved, and ironically, at the time, the people came together because of the community, and we didn't have a King Soopers, we didn't have we had a school, Bill Roberts was kind of one of the first things built. We didn't have a lot of roads. I was on the first block east of Central Park Boulevard. Bill was west of Central Park Boulevard, but it was a growing and vibrant community, and it was just interesting. And Bill, I give you a chance to kind of just say what your thoughts are.
Well, it's so cool to be back. Just so deeply grateful, especially for those of you, Brian, staying around for 20 years. Didn't have that stamina, but just I take such a great delight in reading all of your updates and just the amazing things that continue to happen. Yeah, I mean, just as Brian said, so you know, my kind of obsession in life is community engagement and organizing. So the chance to be part of something from the ground up was just, you know, too much to miss. And I think a lot of people had that feeling of, you've seen a lot of neighborhoods that end up just kind of bickering over stuff, or it becomes, you know, ways to say no rather than say yes to a bigger vision. And so we had this green book that this whole place was built around. So we got together in the circle in the park and just said, you know, what kind of community do we want to be? Do we, you know, how do we want to work together? How do we want to solve problems? And it was an amazing feeling to get that chance to kind of found this on its best terms and try to live up to the best ideas of them. And of course, nothing went like that. Everything, you know, everybody that moved in was frustrated by something, and we would just try to take that energy of frustration. A lot of it was on traffic. You know, I was promised this and this happened, and great. Well, we've got a meeting on Tuesday. Come be mad, and you know, stay for the rest of the engagement. So a lot of those folks were initially, you know, garnered by either the vision or a frustration, and try to roll, you know, whatever brought someone to the meetings to keep them around to try to make it better. And it feels like, you know, we didn't always hit the mark, but I think this community has become a pretty great place to be. Time like you all are doing to figure out how to productively solve problems. And
I think one of the things that Bill leads a group called Civic Canopy, and he brought a lot of that civic mindedness to the group, and we spent a lot of time. You look at the bylaws, we spent a lot of time talking about what it meant to be consensus driven. And that's been the foundation. And that's why it's always so confusing when we do the election.
Sorry about that.
It's not how many vote yes, how many vote no. It's do we have consensus and move forward. So the rest of the slides are just kind of a trip down memory lane. So Mark, the next slide. One of the first things that we did is Halloween was a big deal because there was all these new houses and all the surrounding neighborhoods. So we created Halloween signs the first year. And then you'll notice here the sunspot was our newsletter at the time. This was early on. And so it wasn't pre-Front Porch, but it was, Front Porch was actually run by Forest City at the time, which is now Brookfield. And so we felt it important to put it out there. So this was one of the first sunspots. And if you go to the next slide, this is just a few pictures. If you look at the bottom right, that's what the neighborhood looked like when we first moved in. So you can see MLK on one side, you can see 26th on the other side. There was not really much of a greenway developed yet, but there was a vision, and there was we started by having block captains, and then the other picture is when the town center was being built, and they announced their first retail tenant. So you can imagine what that looked like. So next slide, Mark. Just a couple of other things. I tried to pull out things that kind of highlighted some issues, and I should have worn my glasses. But we had one member that was passionate about the Easter Seals, and that's how the Sun Kickball Tournament started. And that tournament went on for 10 or 12 years through the neighborhood. The other where the sun spot there in the middle was actually what was being published in the front porch. So we did get space in the front porch. And then just another article about the common good and what we were doing in the community. So
Amanda just commented in the chat that she sees a reference to the grapevine. What is that?
That is so funny. It was next door as an innocent child.
yeah,
It was the online platform for engaging, residents. It was hosted by Forest City.
yeah, Forest City wanted the community engagement, and it had ultimately got shut down because people couldn't be nice.
Imagine that.
But just I threw another picture up there.
That is.
This is the youth civic canopy. Bill's group actually hosted the first Sun intranet and so it was the early part of that. And then the other slide was a transportation report. And I intentionally put this in here because even back to 2003 and 2004, transportation has always been a big thing. And we had one board member who actually worked for Dottie. And he served on the board and helped us navigate some of the early things, because none of the streets were actually owned by the city of Denver at the time when things started. They were still controlled by Forest City. And so until blocks of land were finalized, a lot of the interior streets, so think of 28th and 26th, kind of off the town center, none of those were actually owned by the city. So we had to work through the city to get them to force Forest City to do things at the time. So that was why I put that in. And then Amanda mentioned, the next slide, Mark, Amanda mentioned that she got involved because of block party days. And there was an early quite a few years where once a year we would have block party days. And you can't have an event in Central Park without a bouncy castle. And I made these slides yesterday, and even at the mini golf tournament this weekend we had a bouncy castle. So but there were bands that would come and play. They'd block off the streets, and so that was really an early part of building the community. And as Liz said, social media has kind of changed that. And so blocks still get together, but there were many a days that Amanda Alshouse and I would have maps of here's the blocks in and that time it was Stapleton. Here's the blocks within the neighborhood, and here's the person that you contact. And we had those posted on the website. That probably ended in 2010 or so, because it just got so hard to manage.
Shout out to Mark Miringer for his political skills and organizing too, helping get that mapping off.
Yeah. And there were a lot of things that we got addresses and block maps and things like that. I didn't put those there because they got to be so small. Next slide, Mark. So, the neighborhood, I put some minutes there because I wanted you to see that, we were talking about the rec center, we were talking about safety, we were talking about education, and that was back in 2008. And then we had neighborhood watch training, which the DPD still does for blocks that want to have training. At that point in time, we actually were doing it block by block, and that before that was when they would put, so you'll drive around some of the older parts of the neighborhood and you'll see signs that say this is neighborhood watch, and those were blocks that had been trained through DPD at the time. So next slide, I thought it was interesting. You know, we've focused on the development over time, and these were two of the big things that happened early on. To the left is the Central Park Rec Center. That is what the rec center looked like when they first started building it at the bottom. And then on the right, at top right, that was East Bridge. And you have to realize that we now have, you know, a whole development north of 70, but the eastern side of the neighborhood and kind of that tail had nothing for many years. And East Bridge, as you know now with the King Supers, that was a big contention. And then I found this Buffalo Wild Wings flyer that was, we've done a lot of fundraising over the years. It's been very organic as we've done it. So, and then this next slide is some of the events. You know, we redesigned our logo. You can see the two logos there. I intentionally did that because as we designed the new logo for the new name, you know, the big thing is that the control tower always seems to be one of the central things. We did a candidate forum back in the day. And then also in 2009, it was all about what was the experience that we were trying to have in the neighborhood. So next slide, Mark. I mentioned the kickball tournament. We also, you know, we did an event on education this was back in 2018, but we also in 2013 did Earth Day. And so all of these events, I definitely did not get pictures or slides or things of all the events, but just to give people an idea of some of the things that happened. And then the next slide kind of transitions us. In the summer of 2020, we changed our name. And the next couple of slides talk about how we became Central Park United Neighbors. And I still have a swear jar that, you know, I have to put money in every time because Liz looks at me when I accidentally say staple.
Swear jar is a good idea.
But the key is that the neighborhood decided that we were going to change the name, much to the opposition of the city. So if you go to the next slide, I won't read through all of this, but you know, the airport was here in the 90s. There was a committee that was going to change the name of the airport because of the negative connotations of Stapleton's name. And for several years, I won't even begin to tell you how many, but for several years, there were many things that were going on in the world and the community. And we listened very intently at meetings like this about why we should change the name. And it took many other things to happen. But ultimately, one of the founding members, Greg Diggs, and we'll talk a little bit more about Greg later, really organized and got things to the point where we voted to change our bylaws. And I will point out that if anyone goes to the city records and looks at the plot of your land, the neighborhood is still called Stapleton on the official plots of land. And that was something that was, you know, why should we change the name if that's still going to exist? And ultimately what happened was we said it was important to make a statement. And it changed this community, I think, for the better. So I think there were a lot of things. So next slide. A lot of this sparked because of the George Floyd incident in Minneapolis. And so we came in with a renewed effort to change the name. And we did really, it was contentious, but there was never a question. It was, what should we change it to? So if you go to the next slide, we went out to the community, and this was, a yeoman's effort of a lot of the board at the time, where we asked for suggestions. We narrowed it down, the community narrowed it down. And ultimately, in July of 2020, we came up with Central Park United Neighbors. And then, Mark, do you want to try to play the video and see if people can hear it?
Yeah, just for context, this was one of the listening sessions in fall or winter of 2017. Is it possible to get the sound on, or I can play it on my computer? With the sound?
I think Mark's trying it. There it is.
Did you guys get the sound on your end? It was on my end.
I heard it all.
What do you recommend, Jack? And while we're working on that, if we wanted to just say who Greg is.
So Greg was one of the neighbors who met in the Pocket Park back in 2003. Unfortunately, Greg is no longer with us. We lost Greg in 2018.
If you're a web designer, here are 4.
Keep going, Jack. I think that was just a commercial. So
Yeah, just hit skip and I think it'll work.
yeah.
So
everyone, it's great to see everyone out here. I try to hold back from talking because I have a big mouth and I talk all night. So I am going to take a turn at 3 minutes just to say a few things. And I don't even know what order I'll go in. So one quick thing that I want to say is that even though we've been talking about changing the name of the community here, one of the real tasks at hand is not so large as changing the community. We're really trying to encourage the Stapleton United Neighbors Board to change its name. Okay? So, and we don't need, it won't cost a lot of money to do that. So I just want to remind people that the bigger issues are important. But one of the things that we're really here today to focus on is Sun was wanting to hear from us about changing the name, but we're encouraging them to take a first step, an important step, by changing the name of the neighborhood association. And I will take the time to say, I am one of the original Sun board members. I was part of naming Sun Stapleton United Neighbors, and I'm standing here before you today saying that, in my opinion, it's way past time that we change the name. So that's one thing. Another thing I just want you to know, this is a thing. You have heard from scholars, from DU, you don't know that you've heard from some other scholars too, but I want to tell you that this issue in this day is being studied. I'm a critical race theorist. I'll tell you what that is some other time. But we are taking a look at what is going on at this time. We are making history, okay? But that's an academic thing. If you don't know, DSST, the entire middle school, is studying this issue right now and are going to be writing opinion pieces by the end of this term. And I think I am hearing that other schools in this area are going to be studying this too. So you've got the young, you've got the scholars who are looking at this right now. I got more to tell you. We've got journalists and several different types of media people who are documenting what we do and how we talk about it. So I'm going to give you some advice from an old philosopher named Yoda. And that is, do or do not. There is no try. You will either make a decision to do what is right, or we will document what other decision you made, and we'll come back another day. But we thank you for your enthusiasm. We thank you for your engagement, and we look forward to your continued engagement. And we encourage the Board of Directors of Stapleton United Neighbors to do the right thing.
So we went longer, but I think we were also I was killing some time until the council. I don't.
So I'll just say really quickly that I would not be here without Greg Diggs. I became friends with him just through the Northeast Denver Neighbors for Racial Justice Facebook group. So kind of when the Facebook groups were really taking off. And he asked me it was before this, but following Charlottesville. And I think Jamie was there, I think Mantle was there, like a lot of us came. He was organizing folks to just give public comment at the Sun meeting in September. I think it was September 2017. And so he asked me to speak at it, and Jamie spoke at it. And yeah, I just remember lots of folks in the room. And so, yeah, we literally would not be in this room today without the work that Greg had done. He passed away in February 2018. And so, yeah, anyway, I'll stop getting choked up.
And I think that, that's an important part of the history of the neighborhood. Because Greg started it, you heard Greg say, and it made an impact to me sitting, I've been on the board nonstop for 20 years. But to have Greg say the things that he said in that listening session, it did have an impact. And so I think it goes back to why we do what we do, because this neighborhood's so important to all of us. So just keep that in mind as we go to the next 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope that folks can kind of take inspiration, like as we move into another CPUN year, into, what kinds of events, we're now a community of like 30,000 folks from those like 500 homes. So what does community building look like? What does kind of block by block engagement look like when we're this, kind of sprawling, like both geographically and kind of demographically? So anyway.
And if you looked close at the video, I turned around. Jamie was in the video, very pregnant at that time.
Kaylee. Yeah. Greg was a true civil rights leader, and he had grown up with the civil rights movement, and he was so influential to my husband and I as we were moving into this neighborhood. And we were just so honored. He came to our house once and just told us about his upbringing and all of the civil rights activism that he had done. And I was having my daughter and thinking about the type of neighborhood that I wanted to bring her up in, and he was key to that. And the first time we took our daughter to a restaurant, first time we went out of the house after having a new baby, we ran into Greg at the Berkshire, which used to be here, and he died a week later. And so I'm so honored that he met my daughter. She met him. She will always know his name, even though he is no longer with us. And so we should carry him with us as we're forming the neighborhood we want to live in.
Thank you. Yes, with that moment, we can move on to the next slide, but I think actually we don't have, we don't have either Councilwoman Davis or Councilwoman Gonzales-Gutierrez with us. Do we have any ETA at all?
She's in transit, but I don't.
We do have Kelly Pretzer. Could we, would you be okay with going and giving him the development update and any kind of Q&A while we're waiting for the councilwoman?
Sure. Okay, happy to. Why don't I?
Do you need to share?
Kelly, you can come up and sit at the table.
Yeah, come
Yeah, please do.
join us.
I came late, so I feel like you gotta sneak in. Let me, I imagine the best thing would be to join the Zoom meeting.
Yep.
Okay, do you mind buying me like 3 minutes to do that? I will be,
Or if you want to send it to me, I'm already in and I can share.
we'll try both. We'll
Just take these. We have like a 5-minute break somewhere on the schedule, so we can take just a little break right now.
Yeah,
would be fantastic.
So
That's good.
try not to be like chained to.
Working on my properties.
Yes. Yeah, I wasn't housing.
You can just.
Yeah. And then I think,
Just the original.
We can set it right at something. Yourself.
Oh, great. Well, yeah, I have continuously.
see.
I did.
When I was in high school, I did in fact apply and I got.
You probably say that.
Honestly, I'm better for
It's not.
Yeah.
I was just in second grade school. And then Simone, my dad, she laid a little to a preschool house. I didn't like, it's like downtown. It's yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, I've seen all the stuff on the cases just to get it. I feel so.
I feel.
I told.
They started their own school and it's really great. It's kind of partner with them as a school. They let us in. So maybe set up worksheets both.
Hi.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I also joke.
Such a rock star.
I'm not gonna say that, but I'm not gonna discount that as an option.
No,
It's not.
Been friends for. It's in Albuquerque. That's where we met. The Unitarian.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then punishment.
So.
Yeah.
It's like,
We've just always been connected. Yeah. Albuquerque. Here, San Diego, Albuquerque, take a job. And I was done with.
It was really tough. I got these glasses and I was, man, I feel like.
So excited.
I was like, I really think I've simplified this look.
Yes.
And then Netflix touches, and I was like. No, it's gonna have to. And he's the one that sucks, so he should pay. Like, it's the Michael.
That's exactly. One smart. Thanks, take it away.
So, good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see you all. My name is Kelly Pretzer. I work at Brookfield Properties, and among other things, have the privilege of working on some of the final pieces of the Central Park Master Plan. So happy to be here today to give you an update about what I know about some of the commercial development that's happening within the community. And in most cases, with a couple of exceptions, what I'll be talking about is land that is actually not owned by Brookfield, where Brookfield is not actually the one who's building the apartment communities. That land has been sold and is being built by others. So I'm going to give you the best information that I have, but ask for a little bit of grace in that I'm not the person who's managing it day to day. So what I figured I'd do is I'd start north and work my way south. And I will apologize, the slide is slightly out of date. There are a few updates which I will give you verbally as well as we work through. But starting up at the north end, when I last gave this update, there were 35 for sale homes that remain to be completed. There are now actually should be, it's not quite done, but as of this month, the final home should have been sold. So all of Brookfield's new construction homes will have been completed and sold to their new homeowners. So it's a really exciting milestone. There are some other home builders building new homes that still have some homes that they're working through. So that's not every last one, but certainly a big milestone for Brookfield.
So then working our way south, there's an apartment community right at 56 that's being built by a group named Ray Len. That community is named Solana Beeler Park. And our understanding, the last I've heard, is that that would be completed next quarter. So sometime in the early fall is when that apartment community would be completed and delivered. You also might know, it's not highlighted on this slide, but right next to that construction site, there is a vacant parcel there, which is an affordable housing parcel for 120 affordable rental units. And that project, we are all crossing our fingers and thinking good thoughts, because that it applied for the 9% tax credit allocation round, which should be announced, the award should be announced in early July.
Is that Mile High Development?
That's right. That's right. And so that project has actually been divided into 2 phases. It had applied 2 times prior in the 4% tax credit rounds and was not successful. And so the affordable developer kind of changed approach, split into 2 smaller phases so that it would be a more appropriate project for the 9% tax credit round. So that phase 1 was submitted and hopefully will be awarded and can start construction soon. There's another affordable housing site that also is not called out on this slide, but my cursor is pointing to it right next to Inspire Elementary. So that's another approximately 80 units of affordable rental housing. That project is planning to submit for this fall's 4% tax credit round. And I know that they have submitted initial concepts to the City of Denver Planning to start their SDP process as well. So we're really excited about that one moving forward. So then working our way south here, so this big kind of triangle type shape, that is the Milepost 35 community. And it's a little misleading that it says Q4 2024 because that is a phased project. So the first units are available and are starting to be rented now. That is 350 units in that first phase, and then approximately 600 units in subsequent phases. I know that I think it'll be 3 phases total, and I know that those aren't finalized yet. They're kind of working through phase 1 and then moving to phase 2 and then phase 3. And feel free to, can I invite questions too as I'm going? Please, any questions, happy to do my best to answer. So then this is a project that Brookfield is actually working on, an apartment community named Marlin, like Brando, not like the fish. That's what I try to tell people. Marketing, branding, not my thing. So 286 apartments, and kind of similar to MAA, where it's a phased delivery. So the first units have been delivered and we have our first residents, but the whole project won't be complete until the end of the year in about October timeframe. And that one I know for sure. There are lots of detailed questions about it because I am very involved. There's another affordable project actually that's just to the south of that called the Northfield Flats project. That's another Mile High development project that has, I believe it's 112 affordable units. That's also under construction right now at the same time and should be done by the end of the year. So then I will flip now to.
Ellie, before you go
Absolutely.
south, so what is Brookfield's involvement with the shops at Northfield? We had gotten a
Thank you.
Denver Business Journal about.
Yeah. At this point, not really. I mean, the owner now is actually not even the owner that Brookfield had initially sold the shopping center to. This is 2 owners on that. I believe it's a group called Stockdale out of California. So we have no, I found out about it reading that same article.
Or the article, okay.
And also Matt, they're very, like, I think it's just a concept. They don't know anything. I got very mad at them because I'm the one who approves their plans and I scolded them. Why am I learning that you want to build something from reading the news? So as soon as we know more about that, we'll share that as soon as we get it.
Yeah, I'm very eager to find out.
There's someone behind you.
Yeah.
The affordable housing that you mentioned for all part.
That's right.
Townhomes, condos, affordable housing also still to be.
That's right. Thank you so much. There is actually a project, the 70 condo units being built by Northeast Denver Housing Center
that we are very excited. They'll have their first closings starting at the beginning of June. So they are ready to deliver now, also here north of I-70. And then when we get to south of I-70, there is another project that we're in the earlier stages on with Habitat for Humanity, which is 12 townhomes near the King Super on Quebec Street. And those are the final two for sale affordable housing projects that will be part of the community to reach that 10% requirement that we have. Great. Okay, so south of I-70. So the first project to point out is Parcel 8, and I know that we've discussed that at the last couple of CPUN meetings. So I so desperately wish that I had progress and new things to share. And unfortunately, it is, I've not made much progress, but we are hoping to submit that second draft of our infrastructure master plan very, very soon for the city to review. It's been a challenging project to try to balance all the needs and some of the comments that we're getting, but I think we're there. I feel optimistic. So continuing south on Central Park Boulevard, we have here, this is the Trammell Crow project, Elevon, thank you. 301 apartments, and that I do think that this is correct, that they should start renting those apartments imminently.
If they've started leasing, they have not made final delivery, but leasing has been.
Gosh, you know everything, Jack. Thank you, Jack. And then they also own the piece of land that is just to the north of the apartment building that's directly south of the light rail station. And that would be their phase 2 project, which we understand to have about 341 apartments and 7,000 square feet of retail right there on the corner.
I looked in the chair.
Kendall, I think you're unmuted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Continue.
Sure. So then next, there are the kind of the 3 parcels just next to the Trammell Crow parcels that are currently still owned by Brookfield and have moved through the permitting process, about 600 apartments there. We have not started construction yet, and I will say construction start is not imminent on that project yet. But we shall see what the greater economic climate portends later in the year. I also will flag, this is not highlighted here, but you may have seen similarly in the news coverage of the RTD parking lot that had recently gone out for solicitation for development proposals. That's the parcel that's it's covered by the pointers, but it's right here that is directly behind the Walmart, but is currently a parking lot for the RTD train station. So that's this parcel here. And then continuing to move south, Raylan has another project, Solana Central Park, that I actually just saw now leasing banner up on. So I know that they're starting to lease now, approximately 300 apartments. And then there's the project on the southeast corner of MLK and CPB. Price Development Group is building, and similarly, I think end of the year is when that's anticipated to be developed, last that I had heard. And then this also, I think, maybe just so that there's a balance on the slide, I don't know, points out the Circa community that was completed several years ago as well, that has 280 apartment units there. To circle back to the affordable for sale, we're currently talking to Habitat for Humanity about a very slim L-shaped parcel, kind of right kitty corner to the King Supers on Quebec, and next to the Clyburn Apartments. That will be 12 affordable, and I should clarify on the for sale side, affordable means at 80% of area median income or AMI. So 12 units that hopefully we will sign that contract with them in the next couple months, fingers crossed. And then they'll begin permitting and approvals with the city to get those units built.
Any questions from folks online and in the queue?
Sure. Uh-huh.
Anxiety from the people within the neighborhood as we're looking at within half a mile, 1,500 units that aren't even, like, people aren't living there now, and we're hearing about proposals to add another 600 units within RK. And I think, again, we're here to start understanding. Just thinking about that, with where things are, I would say looking at the adds additional perspective of I don't even understand the traffic that is coming yet. And then recognizing what's there. So I want to the extent that you have any commentary around RK.
Sure. And to repeat the question, this was about the RK Mechanical site, which I'm kind of trying to circle generally here, on the map that's up. And similarly have heard that RK has been talking to potential buyers. I know has gone so far as to actually present, I believe this is right, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong.
Right, there is a developer on the RK side, and it is not Brookfield. So I should note here that the RK parcel was delivered to RK directly from the city to RK, whereas most land goes from the city to what was then Forest City, or I guess the Department of Aviation to what was then Forest City and is then subsequently sold again. That did not happen with the RK parcel. There were two parcels. One was the United Training Facility, and then RK Mechanical was the other one there. So technically speaking, legally speaking, RK Mechanical is not part of the Central Park community because it is not part of our master plan. It fits outside the master plan. We do understand that with some conversation with the developer on that project, RK has found a developer, a buyer that will acquire that land. We don't know what the timetable is for that. They have gone to the city. They are engaged in a site development plan. And we saw a very early concept plan from that development group at the beginning of last month, which we then circulated for some feedback, got a lot of great feedback, and we've shared that with that development group. And they, before the end of the summer, we expect them to come back to us to show us what changes they've made since then. At present, they're planning around 564 apartment units is what's planned on that site right now.
And one thing I'd be happy to do is connect Liz. Happy to give you the contact information that I have as well to reach out to them directly.
One thing I did want to make clear, I think through you, Jack, we've requested a public meeting at some point with this developer. But I think that your comment about it not being part of the master plan leads me to ask, what is the relationship? I guess, are they not covered by the Metro District financing for the infrastructure? Or how does that work?
Those are questions that our attorneys are currently looking into. It was never anticipated that the RK site would change hands.
Okay. Because that, I think that the concerns, particularly around the street cuts and the infrastructure planning, then becomes very, I mean, I think people will want to pay a lot more attention to that if it's not financed through the Metro District. How will it be financed? And what will the city require?
Yeah, so our understanding from the city, from the concept plan submitted to the city, the city's very particular about where they will allow a street cut. They're permitting 3 street cuts at this point. All of them, none of them are arterial streets. They're all neighborhood streets. The city wants it all to line up with their block grid, but all of the infrastructure. So I like to think about pipes and concrete and all the things that happen in the ground, or it's all going to be privately financed by this development group. It does sit within the Westerly Creek taxing district, so it will still pay into the bonds as we work to before 2052 to pay those off. But from a planning perspective, it's its own thing, for lack of better terms. And The site is fully entitled as a mixed use development site. So they can have up to 5 stories per their current zoning. And the zone was changed from its former industrial classification.
Jack, Amanda questions, would they pay dues?
They would not. They would be outside the MCA. That is not an MCA parcel. The MCA approached them. They asked if they would annex themselves into the Master Community Association. They declined our request. So what does that mean in practicality? They will not pay MCA dues. They are also not considered MCA members, which means that they would not be eligible for things such as pool passes.
They are building a pool on site though.
They are building a pool.
So then also any green space is up to that, like that the maintenance and all of that. Okay.
All privately developed and financed.
Are there any other parcels in the neighborhood that are like that, or is this really a unique?
The arcade site and the United Airlines training facility. Those are the only 2. Then in this scenario, Quebec Square Shopping Center and the Northfield Mall Shopping Center are also likewise separate planned developments and fall outside of the traditional development plan as well.
So is that the same for the shops at Northfield's project that would be coming online?
So that's going to be that's going to be even more complicated.
Okay.
And to save everybody what would be a master's seminar in master planned real estate, Northfield, Quebec Square, Northfield Mall, Quebec Square, the RK site, and the United Training Facility are all special, and they're all special in their own units.
That's very helpful, and I'm glad that the question came up because I wasn't aware that RK was like such a different situation. So thank you.
The one distinction I would make is MCA and CPUN are different.
Well, yeah.
Those residents would be part of CPUN because they fall within the boundaries that we've defined with the city. For the hard.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, okay. So this is another to be continued conversation, but thank you for coming. Thank you for asking that question. If folks don't mind, I would like to move because we have both councilwomen here now. So if we can, thank you, Kelly. And we'll all be in touch about all of these things. Now, Mark, if you can go to the slide deck, and we have Councilwoman Lewis and Councilwoman Gonzales-Gutierrez. I know Councilwoman Lewis has a slide deck that I shared with you, Mark. I don't know how you wanted to divvy this up, but I was thinking kind of intros and then a joint Q&A after you each do your piece.
Okay. Me? Okay. I don't have a slide deck.
Did you share the District 8 slide deck? Sorry.
I mean, some of them might be your slide deck. Yes.
At bottom, Mark.
Like bottom right.
Bottom right, Mark.
A little X slide.
There you go.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So good evening. My name is Shaka Lewis. I serve on diverse city councils for District 8, excuse me. And so wanted to talk about what some of the work that we've been doing with city council since being elected in July, or sworn in July rather. So one of the first things that we were able to accomplish that was really important for our council office is to go out into community and have conversations in each of the different neighborhoods within District 8. We asked 3 very simple questions. What's going well, what needs improvement, and what questions do you have of us? We took that data and synthesized that data, analyzed that data to really figure out what was happening overall within District 8 and what were the priorities for each of the different neighborhoods, so that as we were thinking about our priorities, but also our budget, that we were being responsive to what it was that we were hearing from community. We did the same exact thing, same exact process when it came to the budget for 2024. in 2023 to identify what our budget priorities would have been. From that, we were able to create a number of things, community panels. And those community panels led by Jesse here, as many of you may know, really focused on specific areas around safety, and not safety in the sense of increasing law enforcement presence. In addition to that, where were the opportunities for us to think about safety through infrastructure and environmental design? We also spent a great deal of time talking about climate. Housing consistently comes up as an overarching conversation, as a connector, but also transportation, and where we might be able to address some of the transportation needs within District 8. We have finalized our macro, I would say, priorities for our budget, and some of the things that we included in the macro priorities, and many of the things that will also be included in the letter that City Council gives to the mayor, is a new library and recreation center for East Colfax. We've heard that quite a bit. And so we're still beating that drum. We've heard pretty extensively from members of all communities around traffic safety measures for District 8, around our schools, but just in general around pedestrian safety. And so wanting to be responsive to that. And then we also heard from District 8 that we're also often needing to travel in order to be able to attend large festivals that the city might put on outside of District 8. And so was there an opportunity for us to bring some of those festivals into District 8 so folks are coming to us versus the other way around? In addition to that, I hold what we call coffee with the councilwoman, not a coffee drinker, but I do drink tea, but it's 2 C's and just made sense. So we have coffee with the councilwoman, where is an opportunity for you all to sign up for time with me, either in person, and if it's in person, we tend to patron a locally owned business, so you all can get a chance to learn about new businesses and have the opportunity to earn them some extra dollars. The topics are for you. I don't care what you come and talk about. It's totally up to you. I take notes, I ask questions. And those have been incredible conversations where we just learn about like what's unique to each of the what's unique to each of the neighborhoods within the district, or even just individual families that they may be grappling with that may not bubble up into like our community panels. In addition to that, we hold monthly town halls. And this is an opportunity for us as a council office to provide you all with some updates, but also for you to hear from different city agencies about the work that they have going on in partnership with District 8. You can go on to the next slide. So some of the things that we included for the 2025 macro priorities budgets, goals, which we heard directly from you all, was to fund mini grants for workforce development programs. And this was an opportunity to increase youth employment opportunities in both the private and public sectors. And so you can think about like the summer youth employment program that typically is for a short period of time, but really thinking about, can we extend that for a year so that youth have the opportunity to earn income for their households year round. We also talked about the opportunity to create a food justice fund for flexible funding infrastructure. So you can think about that in the context of like, is it necessary to hire staff in order to do that? Transportation, cold food storage, or even culturally relevant food purchasing and food distribution. And we heard this pretty significantly in communities that have a bunch of food deserts, or communities that have a lot of like immigrant and refugee populations to be culturally responsive. You will hear, I feel like this is something that's going to probably come up every budget cycle, is the participatory budgeting, because people actually like to tell the city what to do with their dollars, as you absolutely should. And so we continue to push as a council body for us to expand the dollars that you all have access to be able to design what it is that you believe you need for your communities. And then another one of them is to think about, as we are looking at our demography, or hopefully we're looking at our demography, is to think about our senior population and how we might be able to better provide them access to the community and how they get around in terms of transportation. But what are the things that they might have access to in order to live full school lives, essentially. And we've heard this quite a bit from seniors that there aren't a lot of activities for them to engage in. And so as a city, might we be more intentional about how we might be able to design programming for our senior population and our growing senior population more specifically. And then finally, one of the things that we've really been pushing is to think about how we change the way contracts are written to require more metrics of success and accountability. Currently, that is limited, to say the least, in terms of like how contracts are executed at the city level. And so we want to think about like, how do we move towards performance-based contracts and not just contracts that say things like, you know, referred 100 people to a job, and more specifically, of the 100 people that we referred to jobs, 60 of them were able to gain employment, and of the 100 people that we referred to mental health resources, 6 of them actually went through treatment. That kind of granular specificity within our contracts is really what we're looking for in terms of that accountability to ensure that we're good stewards of taxpayer dollars. Thanks for moving on. Appreciate you. So we're continuing to do our work in community. So council members submitted a lot of budget priorities. And we were able to whittle those down to 77 consolidated budget priorities amongst the entire council body. And then 52 of those received support from the entire council body in order to be, or not the entire, at least 7 members, in order to be included in the letter that we are going to be given to the mayor. That's maybe later this week, pretty soon. Very soon. Yes. In addition to the work that we've been doing on council, and I have to thank this one because her and Councilman Hines did an incredible job this legislative session, keeping up with what felt like 1 million bills, but maybe wasn't quite 1 million bills. Okay. But there were some that I thought were very specifically interesting for District 8 as a whole. City Council took 67 formal stances on separate pieces of legislation. And we testified as well on some of those pieces, either for, against, or amend, depending on what they were. But there were 3 that our council office really kept a keen eye on. That one of them was around Senate Bill 94 for safe housing for residential tenants. This is the warrant of habitability. In addition to that, Senate Bill 24072, which is voting for combined eligible electors, which is fancy for saying people who are locked up can actually vote. And then the final one was the HB 241447, which was the efforts to reform RTD, which reform really just meant we're going to take your elected body and turn them into appointments. And we were able to kill that bill, rightfully so, we need to be. That's it. So if you all would like to learn more about what's happening, we would love for you to attend our town halls. We tend to have a town hall at the end of every month on a Saturday, not this one because we got yelled at the last time we had it on a holiday weekend. I'm not going to repeat that. We learned lessons. So we are going to move that to a date that works better for the folks within District 8. Sign up for our newsletters, but also give us a call, send us emails. There are things that you all want to make sure is on our radar. Like, we are totally open to that and we'd love to hear from you all as well. Don't fill out any comment cards because I don't have any, but here you go. You can sign up for our newsletters with this handy dandy QR code. And also these are all the contact and the ways in which you can contact our office. And you can find us on all the social media sites, even the ones that are not listed here, like Threads. I'm not on that, but we are as a council office, as it turns out.
I just want to do a shout out. Your newsletters are fab.
Thank you. Thank you. My team is awesome.
Well, whoever's running that show needs credit.
Yes.
Because they're actually interesting to read as long as they are. I'm still with you by the end.
Thank you for saying that.
There's something USA Today years ago used to print an economy of words. Yeah. And I would say that to my students around essays and that sort of thing. They're long, but they're packed with great information. So thank you.
Thank you.
Whoever, Jesse, if that's you.
Yeah, Vince.
Oh, sorry.
I will say e-newsletter, so you really get to choose. You get to choose your own adventure here at District 8.
That's a good.
So on Mondays we have our newsletter that really focuses on what's happening on Mondays during council meetings. So we really delve into like what contracts are coming up, what's happening in different committees, and then just kind of a recap of what's been happening previous week. On Thursdays, you'll get a newsletter to tell you all the things that you should be able to do over the weekend with kind of a recap of kind of what's been happening during the week. And then for you policy nerds, Jesse has you, because once a month in sequence with our town halls, actually, we do a policy newsletter. So we really dive into some policy of some sort. So sign up for the newsletters, you know, choose your own adventure or choose all three. Yeah, all yours.
Thank you, Councilwoman Lewis. You're teaching me something. I am just one of your at-large council member, and we were also just recently elected in just last July, or sworn in, right? Sworn in last July.
Yeah.
And then we went right into like budget and all of the things for this year, which was an incredible process. But prior to that, I actually served in the state legislature for 5 years as a state representative for House District 4, which is North and West Denver, and worked on a lot of policy there. So now I'm, you know, trying my hand at serving the entire city of Denver, which is a little bit different than just a small portion of it in the state house. So, yeah, I don't have a slide. I was able to hop on and join this meeting, I think last minute. I finally came off of, I have 3 kids, elementary, middle, and high school. And we finally just are getting a break from all the sports stuff. And so now I'm trying to get out into all of the meetings and everything like that. So, however, I will provide all the contact information and everything that you need to get a hold of my office. So one of the things with at-large that's very different, I think, than our district offices is we do cover the entire city, and we have to figure out how to best do that, how to best hear from constituents, and while also partnering with our council district offices, which I can speak for myself and Councilwoman Parity that we work really hard to do that, especially with our council district offices. If people reach out to us, we try to make sure we involve them, but we also try to support them as well, and not just say, hey, this is your thing, you need to deal with this, because you're all just as much our constituents as you're theirs. So I started in last year doing a city tour at coffee houses and local establishments, trying to support local businesses, trying to do them different days of the week. So doing them, you know, during the daytime, doing some of them in the early evening time, and then trying to incorporate some weekend times as well. And we started that in District 11, which is Green Valley Ranch, because I had heard during the campaign how often folks in Green Valley Ranch do really feel left out and feel like they're on an island, which they kind of are in a transportation, you know, lens, in a transit lens. They're very much on an island and resource lens. So we started out there very intentionally and have been making our way. So far we've been through District 11, District 10, District 9, 8, where I met District 7, I met a few community members there, District 3 and District 1. And in the next coming months, we'll be in District 4, 7, and 2. So we have 3 more districts to get through. And my goal is, you know, every year to try to get through the different areas, and then also trying to make it to meetings like this to be able to have, you know, just conversation. At those various meetings, had great conversations, and they are just very open. There's no like scheduled or set agenda. It's, you know, what do you want to come and talk to me about? And we're still playing with the format. Do we set up like, you know, time slots for people? Right now, it's just been kind of free and open. So we have like, you know, anywhere from 5 to maybe 10, sometimes 20 people that show up, and we have small group conversations. And things that I've been listening and learning from folks at what's happening in their communities on the ground. And I can say the main things that have come up a lot are bike lanes, you know, what do we have for our youth to do in community, as well as our elders, and really, you know, wanting to make sure that we're, I know permitting has come up. So there's like kind of a bunch of different things that have come up. And so in my office, we try to take that information and see where we're seeing patterns across the city. and then trying to work to address those by whether it's setting up meetings with, the departments and agencies and talking through what's happening, where are the efficiencies that are lacking, and things like that. We also, in attending, whether it's town halls that are being put on by youth, other events that we get invited to, is listening to things that we're hearing from folks there. Because of an at-large office, it is very different, right? Where our district folks are able to really hone in on specifically what's happening in this particular community and then able to and so we're usually looking at things from a broader lens of what's happening across the city. So with that, some of the things that I've been able to, that I'm hoping to work on going into this year is, building capacity for behavioral health care in our city, because I think that's one of the main things we've heard. I did go on a majority of the initial House 1000 town halls along with the mayor and the council district people. Councilwoman Parity and I did our best to split up. We both have kids, and so we, tried to join forces and get to as many of those as we can across the city. And one of the things that we heard the most was that the people see the need for access to behavioral health care. And my former job was kind of in this space. My background's in social work. I worked with kids and families involved in the juvenile justice and child welfare systems in the last 20 years in Denver. And so that's the one thing that we saw was the access to behavioral health care. But the bigger issue is the workforce. We don't have enough people that are in those roles, that are treatment providers. And you don't just have to be a licensed clinician. You can also get other types of education and training as maybe someone with lived experience that is able to then turn that around and provide services to others. And so one of the things that I've been talking about a lot, and you've probably heard me a lot, is talking about how do we increase our capacity for mental health and treatment providers to better serve our communities. And that goes for everyone from children to youth to adults. And so part of that is recommendations that I've been making when it comes to our budget and how we are making those investments, how the city can support efforts for people who want to be treatment providers. This is super, super wonky, but this is the stuff that I think, when we talk about what our communities need to actually address those root causes, that why we're seeing people struggle. So that is one. Another issue is around, we keep hearing the mayor talk about good governance. I have some agreements and disagreements with that. But when I look at DOTI, our Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. And the one thing that I continued to hear from folks was not only about bike lanes, but also just about their interactions with the department. And so I've already taken measures in meeting with the agency, but also with their new director, Amy Ford, and had a very frank conversation with her about what I am hearing from community members, and especially like RNOs and folks who are trying to engage in processes and decisions that are being made, and how are they being made? How is there access and for public voice at their meetings and things like that? She was very grateful for the feedback that I provided, and we're planning on continuing to have those conversations. I think there are some things that need to fundamentally change about how they are instituting and implementing the bike lane program. Those bike lanes were drawn, I don't know, probably a decade ago at this point, and our city has changed drastically in the infrastructure with all of the new development and everything. And so I think that there's a huge gap in which a bike lane that is drawn, then when they meet with the community, and then when they get to the point of actually implementing it and installing the bike lane, there's years in between those two steps. And so they're taking a serious look at that, and I'm continuing to work with them on that. I'd say the last thing I'll just go over as another big bucket item is finding, and this is again a funding issue because we are getting ready to, or jumping into the budget season, but it goes back to our children and youth. And part of that is making sure that services are easily accessible for families, children. Having worked in that system, oftentimes we would see families come to us when it was already too late, when their child or their teenager, usually at that point, right, has committed an offense or allegedly committed an offense, or they're involved in the truancy system. And what they often tell us is, you know, when my kid was, 7, 8, 9 years old, I was actually asking for help. But everyone said I had to wait for them to get into trouble in order to access that. And so a lot of this is partnering with the Office of Children's Affairs, who has just released their plan for this summer. I still have a little bit of skepticism, but I said, look, let me partner with you. So that's been a lot of the work our office has been doing is how do we partner with these departments? How do we also bring in folks that will help them with their implementation? So like today, we were going over the application for youth to apply for summer jobs, and they have words in there like an attestation of your income. And I said, what? Young person, I would be like, oh, wait, what is that? I think about a teenager, a young person going, what, and then asking also for parental consent if you're under 18, but you're of legal age to work. Parental consent to be able to work, which I don't believe that's even within legal realms. So things like that is being able to partner with these departments and make sure that the things that they're putting out to community are actually meaningful and helpful and accessible. And so part of that is also making sure that the departments like Office of Children's Affairs that are providing important work, but are severely underfunded to provide that work, are receiving the proper funding that they need to adequately provide services to our kids and families in Denver. So with that, I'll stop there and I will pass around. I have some cards I'll pass around so that you all have access to my office.
And I shared your information. I shared your city council website.
Oh, perfect.
So.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Does anybody both online and in the cube have questions for either or both councilwomen?
This is Mark. I do have a question. Thank you both for being here. I'm glad you're here tonight, particularly with hopefully you got to catch some of the development update because so much of it was focused on the higher density we're starting to see in our neighborhood. And I personally am glad that we're seeing high density and recognize that it's necessary for the growth of Denver, given that we don't have more lands to grow into. The part that I didn't hear at all in any of the discussion that I'm concerned about is I feel like the city is really falling behind when it comes to providing transit as we increase that density. I know the legislature just passed some new fees to help with local funding for transit. But I would love to see, and I think we desperately need more circulator style buses or something like that. And I don't think the city can just rely on RTD to fill the gaps that we're starting to see. One person earlier commented on how traffic is getting worse and worse. And I think that is very much because we are falling behind on the transit available. So I'm wondering what we can do. If you're familiar with this bill, these bills that just passed the legislature to help fund transit, and if we can get a report back at some point on hopefully early plans or something we can do quickly to help alleviate some of the traffic that's really starting to build in part due to the lack of transit.
Yeah. So we actually just had our recap on what happened in the legislature, and I didn't mention, that was another job that I had just in the last 120 days because of my experience. I was asked to help our legislative committee, which was tracking all of the bills, but that's the transit-oriented communities bill did pass. I think the thing for Denver is we are on par with what that bill is requiring around developments near transit sites. I know there's a lot more that comes to that bill. And one of the things that we have asked for is for our community planning and development agency to come and provide a recap on that to council with how this aligns with either what the city is already doing and how can we also benefit from some of the things that will come along with being in line with this policy. And so that's something that we need to have done because, towards the end of the legislature or towards the end of session, things get very hairy and there's amendments flying and things happening. And so we need to make sure we have a full picture of what that bill actually turned out to be because there were a number of changes made throughout the time. So we would love to do that. I would love to.
I'll just add that one of one of the, so speaking at the state level and then at the municipal level, one of the budget priorities that we included, that council also talked about as a body was micro priorities or micro transit, excuse me, with priorities, micro transit. And so you think about it as like the Montbello connector, and thinking about the Montbello connector primarily serves districts 8 and 9. And so can we think about how to expand services like the Montbello connector to better connect the city as a whole, and not just one specific area?
I'm just
So
to
it
kind
sounded
of
like you
piggyback on.
referenced TOD. Sorry for, I got just quick follow up, Amanda. You mentioned the TOD bill, but I was talking about another bill that was actually funding transit and sending that to local communities. It was like fees. I don't know if it's the same bill, but what I was reading was not about TOD. So I wasn't sure if you were familiar with that or if that's just part of it, but it was like fees on oil production and rental cars that would be funding transit.
Oh, got it. Okay, the rental car fee bill, I don't know what happened. I don't know. They know that towards the end, I'm not sure if that bill made it. Because there
I
was
saw an
some.
article about being signed.
Okay, well then
We
it's
can report back.
yeah, we'll come back. But yeah, basically it's taking rental car fees and applying that towards. And so there was some back and forth around whether or not that was legal.
And so just, I think that someone did recap these, the apartment numbers earlier, but just to kind of sum up what Kelly was going through as you guys were coming in, there are something in the ballpark of pushing 4,000 apartments that are going to be coming online along the Central Park corridor in the coming years. And the traffic congestion along Central Park Boulevard can get heavy at peak times currently. And so the concern is that it's just going to get worse. So similarly around Northfield High School, where there really isn't adequate bus service, a lot of people drive to get there. And then there are concerns with neighbors about just excessive overflow and the on-street parking with like trash and things being sort of blocked and that sort of thing. So if there were better circulators, like Mark were saying, perhaps not as many students would be driving to the campus. And then also just, are there other plans to help with the corridor as the population increases in this region by 4,000 more units?
So that, Amanda, is what I was addressing regarding the micro transit that we included in the budget. And that was the conversation the conversation that we had as a body to think about, are there opportunities for us to not just rely on the services that RTD provides? And not to say that we shouldn't be working in partnership with RTD to think about how that can be more expansive, but are there other opportunities for us to think about as a city that we can expand our own transit option and multimodal opportunities for folks to get around differently and not be so heavily reliant on single occupancy vehicles?
So is that's a concept right now that's not funded?
No, that was included in the budget priorities. So we're just go ahead.
When is the implementation of that going to be something that we see?
So that's for the 2025 budget. And so we're not quite there yet.
Question also. Are there any solutions with the city regarding large streets like Quebec and Central Park Boulevard? As you get down to Montview, a few blocks are Colfax, right through 2-lane residential there.
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry.
The large streets like Quebec multi-lane and Central Park funnel down to a residential 2-lane on view to Colfax. So there's all these round cars to residential areas to any solutions to where things funnel down to 2-lane residentials, 4-lane.
You probably don't want to hear my answer because I'm all about getting single occupancy vehicles off the street and figuring out how we can make those roads more accessible, but also more pedestrian friendly, especially when you talk about Quebec. Like, it's one, the traffic is just ridiculous, but it's just actually very terrifying to be a pedestrian on Quebec in general. And so like, those are the conversations that we have as a council office is how can we expand transit options, transportation options, so that folks are less reliant on their cars. But quite frankly, if it were up to me, I don't think I would have Quebec being a street that's focused on cars, but maybe a corridor that would be specific for transit, for like RTD or even the microtransit that we were talking about. But to answer your question is, I've not heard anything from a city perspective about specific plans for that corridor, except for sidewalks.
I had heard there were plans to widen.
There you go.
At one point in time, actually, I just learned this from Councilwoman Sawyer, because I was doing a tour in her district in District 5, so further down Quebec.
Oh, to take
to widen the street, but it was going to cost something like $30 million, and there wasn't enough funding in what was originally budgeted.
Was that to take the people's property though?
I actually don't. She didn't go into details, but I heard that yeah, there had been something proposed, but it didn't happen. And I think that, you know, that just also goes to how we partner with RTD as well, and how do we improve our transit system. I don't have all those answers, but would love to work with people that maybe do.
Well, that's actually, I guess, a good kind of stopping point for now, because I just want to respect your time. You're here late. And we actually also have some CDOT people to talk about I-270 corridor. But next month, RTD Director Joanne Rusha will be speaking at our June monthly meeting specifically around kind of improving transit, particularly Vision Zero improvements, and then also specifically around Northfield High School, and going up and down Central Park Boulevard, Amanda. So that's something that is on her list to address. So, and I think she at least has a bot in the chat in the Zoom meeting right now. So
nice.
She was
questions as well. So
yeah,
we can get back to you all.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
All right, so I just want to thank you both for joining us, for your time and your work. And I do want to, since we're now past 8:15, this only goes to 8:30. I just want to give Christian Jimenez is here from CDOT. If you wanted to unmute yourself and say hi, and then kind of the last kind of little board items that are on the agenda. I think, as usual, we'll just move that to email, and most of it is just talking about what's going to happen next month at our meeting. So don't worry about it. So Christian, you have the rest of the time. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. And can you see me or just hear me?
I can see you and hear you.
Okay, perfect. So just remember that the camera adds like 20 pounds. So keep that in mind. But thank you again for to be over at 8 p.m. So I appreciate you taking the time. And I also want to give a shout out to the Neighbors Association Board who allowed us to be here with you all today. And then Jake from our team as well, who coordinated this. But I'm not sure, I can see all of you, but I'm not sure, did anybody drive the I-270 corridor today by chance? No.
Try not to, no.
And I heard somebody say they try not to. Would you mind just sharing why you prefer or you choose not to?
Yeah, because there's always a bottleneck and you think, oh, there must be an accident or something, but there's not. And it always takes a very long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're 100% correct. The interstate was designed for much less traffic. And because of the amount of traffic that, transits that corridor on a daily basis, actually it's over 100,000 vehicles that travel the highway every single day. Nearly 10% of that traffic are big commercial trucks. It's freights, people going from Boulder or people coming from the northern part of the city of the Denver metro area going to the airport. So a lot of people are utilizing that corridor every single day. And because of that, the Colorado Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration began a National Environmental Policy Act process, which is also called the NEPA process in 2020, They initially anticipated an environmental assessment, and last year, CDOT determined a more detailed environmental review was needed and requested an environmental impact statement. And so that is where we are today. They know that the corridor needs improvements, needs a lot of pavement work, a lot of the bridges need emergency repairs, and that's why a lot of times you drive along that corridor and you're seeing construction crews on site. And so because of this process, CDOT would like to know your thoughts and exactly what you just shared with me about, there's always traffic, there's always, it always takes forever to get to one point to the other. That is why CDOT is hosting a series of events, listening sessions. We're joining community meetings like this one, and we want to know what your thoughts are. What are some of your concerns? What would some improvements be that you would like to see? Do you want additional bike lanes or pedestrian and cycling options as well? All of that information CDOT is going to utilize for this improvement project, and that is the process that we're in today. I'm actually going to be sharing here in the chat the website for the project. And once you arrive at the landing page on that website, you'll be able to see two public involvement options right at the top of that page. One is a feedback form, and we love to have your feedback on the project. We want to know what you want to see, what your concerns are, what other options, mobility options you'd like to see. Do you want an express lane? Do you want an HOV lane? If you do, where do you want for those funds to go? What kind of community projects do you want CDOT to support? So we love for you to take your time this week to fill out that feedback form. And then we also have office hours. The last Tuesday of every month, we're going to be hosting office hours at the Eagle Rec Center in Commerce City. It's going to be from 4 to 6 p.m. every last Tuesday of the month. And we'll have some of the engineers, CDOT, a project team that's going to be present, able to answer questions. We'll have project boards that give out more details of the timeline of when construction is expected to begin, and then they'll be able to answer any questions that you may have. If you also don't want to fill out that comment form online, you can go to the rec center and fill it out there in person. And then we're also going to be holding stakeholder workshops those same Tuesday nights beginning at 5:30. We'll have childcare available. We'll also have dinner for you. So if you would like to go and hear from the project team, give your thoughts to them in person, you'll be able to do that every last Tuesday of the month at Eagle Point Rec Center. Office hours begin from 4 to 6 p.m. And then 5:30, we'll have dinner. And then at 6 p.m., we'll also have a stakeholder workshop every last Tuesday. So again, we're more than happy to provide any information that this group might need. If you want to hold another bigger meeting with more residents in Central Park with the project team, we're able to do that. I'm going to also share my email address here in the chat. And I am the bilingual liaison for this project. So if you need information in other languages, if you would like for us to go and present at any other community event, any meeting, or if you would like to have a one-on-one as well, feel free to reach out to me directly, and we'll be happy to accommodate any requests you may have. And then, so I just shared both the project website on here and the my email. Jake is also going to be sharing the comment form on here and the flyer with additional information.
Sorry, sorry to interrupt. You shared them as a direct message, I think, to me.
Oh, okay.
Full meeting.
Do I send it on the option on here that says the cube?
No, but the email.
Oh,
Oh, I see. I see what you're talking about. Okay, perfect. I am sharing that to the whole group now. Thank you for letting me know. Appreciate that.
No worries.
Perfect. I think I shared it now in the correct chat on here, both my email and the project team or the project website. Again, we want to thank you for taking the time. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. If you would like to attend any of our open houses, any of our office hours, or any of the stakeholder workshops, feel free to do so. And if you want to reach out to me directly, I can send you a link with all of the dates, the locations. And you could also just go on the website and check out our calendar every month. We're going to be at a lot of different community events, HOA meetings, RNO meetings. So feel free to reach out if you would like a specific one-on-one presentation with your team.
I just have a quick question about the pedestrian and cyclist access across the corridor. I was just recently driving down Interstate 25 through the tech center, and they have a number of pedestrian bridges that span Interstate 25 there. Near transit centers, and we actually have a transit center in the Central Park community. And I was wondering if part of this project could include a pedestrian bridge across that lower part where Interstate 270 connects back with 70 to bridge the interstate right around where the transit center is at the Central Park station.
Yeah, that is a great comment. And, you know, CDOT right now is exactly this. They want to know what your thoughts are. And if you want to see this, we would love to hear that and see that in the comments. So please feel free to share that with the CDOT team. There is right now the Sand Creek Greenway that's under the corridor. I know that CDOT has that greenway in mind, and they're going to be doing some additional improvements to that. But I think Ms. Allhouse, if I see your last name correctly, that is a great comment, and I know that they want to do something. So please, when you have a moment, fill out that comment card. Make sure that you include that in your comment, because CDOT really wants to know where you like those improvements to take place.
Let's ask also about just the timeline, just so that we have a sense of what's the timeline for the public input phase, and then kind of what's the timeline on whatever comes out of that, and then implementation, just so we kind of have a sense of the scale of the time on this project.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think right now we are in the environmental study statement. And so they are listening to the community. CDOT wants to know what your thoughts are. That's going to take place from now until fall of next year. They're going to be hosting a series of public meetings to let folks know what the results of that statement and that study was. And then they're planning to begin construction in 2026. So we still have a little bit of time to make sure that we're reaching to everybody. As you know, I-270 is used by everyone. So people from Boulder, North Glen, Westminster, all the way from Wyoming, people traveling to Denver International Airport from all over the state. And so we want to make sure that we give folks enough time to be able to be part of this project, to give us their thoughts, their concerns. So we do have some time, but the more responses, the more feedback that CDOT receives, the better. So we can definitely make sure that we are listening to the community and adding the improvements that they want to see along the corridor.
Is there an email list that our RNO can get on for updates about, you know, as this progresses?
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody would like to receive updates, just feel free to send me an email. You could also go on the website and fill out the form on there. But yeah, if you want to make sure that you are on the updates, just send me an email and I'll add you and make sure that you receive those updates.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time. I know it's already 8:30, so, and you've been there since 6:30, so appreciate the time.
All right. Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for joining us. We'll let folks have, I mean, it's almost 8:30. So I think we can let folks go, but thank you for that information. And I will follow up just so that we can share out any pertinent information in our community emails that we send out twice a month.
Yeah, thank you. We do have the workshop and the open house next week, Tuesday. So if you have some time, feel free to stop by at Eagle Point Rec Center for our office hours, and our stakeholder workshop. So again, thank you. Have a good evening, and I'm here to serve. So let me know if you need any additional information.
All right, great. So yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you everyone who's still online and in the room. That I think concludes our May annual forum. Next meeting is June 18th, Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. And we will be doing kind of an RNOs 101 and committee just basically committee information and speed dating. And we also will have officer elections. I will follow up with everybody by email just to get some more information out about that. But have a great rest of the evening, great rest of the month, and I will see you next month.